Good evening, everybody. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Logan Municipal Council Meeting for April 2nd, 2024. Thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Our opening ceremony tonight is going to be presented by James Boyd from CAPSA. This is our local domestic violence and sexual assault center. Thanks, James, for being here.
Thank you. My name is James Boyd. I'm representing CAPSA. CAPSA is the nonprofit domestic violence, sexual assault, and rape recovery center supporting our community. April Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Many of our community recognize us as the domestic violence center, but CAPSA is also a state-recognized rape recovery center for our community. Unlike many organizations around the country where domestic violence and sexual assault are in separate organizations, CAPSA is a dual agency which gives us unique opportunities to support victims of sexual abuse. A recent case involved a college student who was sexually assaulted by her landlord. She no longer felt safe returning to her apartment. Imagine the trauma of having to go to a basement apartment where your landlord's the perpetrator. As a dual agency, we uniquely are able to provide housing, shelter, along with rape crisis casework and clinical therapy. This combined provides a unique opportunity for healing. But this is just one of many stories of the individuals CAPSA supports. From January through March, so in the last 3 months, CAPSA has provided support services to 130 individuals where sexual assault was the primary victimization. An additional 250 where sexual assault was the secondary cause for them seeking services. In addition, we've responded to 15 Code R exams at the Cache Valley Hospital. These are forensic sexual assault exams for adults where our advocates will respond any time of the day so we can collect evidence that may be used in future prosecution. With April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we ask our community to start by believing. At CAPSA, we witness the transformational power of belief daily. When survivors bravely share their story and their experience, the first response significantly impacts their healing journey. Negative responses can deepen trauma and deter survivors from seeking further help, contributing to the chilling statistic that 74% of sexual assault victims will never report to law enforcement. In contrast, research has found that victims who are supported, including confidential advocacy, increase engagement with law enforcement and the judicial system, potentially leading to more successful prosecutions and outcomes. Silencing of a victim only benefits the perpetrator. This is why CAPSA is asking our community to embody the message of Start by Believing. It is a promise to survivors to be heard, supported, and empowered. As we move forward, I encourage each of you to continue to learn about CAPSA. I put out annual reports, impact reports, and all in front of each one of you, and ask you to also publicly pledge to support victims of sexual abuse and Start by Believing. On the back of these annual reports is a QR code that you can scan and do a digital pledge, including a message to a survivor that our caseworkers can share, showing that our community supports them. Thank you for the time and your support of CAPSA over the years. Together we can create a safer, more supportive environment for all survivors. And now, any questions before pledge allegiance? No, and now I can lead into the Pledge Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, James. I wish you didn't have to come and talk to us.
Yes.
That someday organizations like CAPSA won't be needed.
Great.
Agreed.
At this time, I will ask for a motion for acceptance of the minutes of tonight's agenda from the council.
I move acceptance of the minutes and approval of the agenda for this evening.
I'll second.
Okay, any changes or Questions? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted and the agenda is approved. Just a reminder that Logan City Council meets every first and third Tuesday of the month at 5:30 here in the council chambers. Our next meeting will be April 16th, 2024. At this time, we open up the microphone for questions and comments for the mayor and the council. Just a reminder that this is for items that are not otherwise on the agenda for the evening. If you are here as a group, we ask that a representative come up and speak for you. Please be mindful of the need that we always encourage everyone to speak with civility and respect at this event. And please limit yourself to 3 minutes. And make sure that you have signed in so that we know how to respond to you, or to make sure that staff has contact information to get back to you on your questions. So the floor is open.
Hello, it's me again, Josh Mulder from Logan. Let's see, I've got a little quote. I'm wondering if you guys can guess who said this. We need leaders not in love with money, but in love with justice, not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity. Robert Luther King Jr. Anyway, I wanted to address the council and everybody up here about some comments about what makes Logan the gem that it is. Because I've heard it numerous times. Logan's a gem, of Utah, and it is. Growing up here, this place has been great, even for a lot of us, alternative kids, alternative high school kids. I'm thinking that we need an assignment day with our representatives and our leaders. And I think that maybe something like having a short essay on what makes Logan a gem. Maybe a couple of paragraphs or something. What is it that makes Logan a gem to you? Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Any other questions or comments for the mayor or council? Okay, seeing nobody, we will move on to mayor and staff reports. Mayor Daines.
Thank you. Tonight we have an update on the Logan River project, and we have Zan Murray from JUB Engineering who is here to give us a presentation and answer questions from the council. Again, there's no public comment or question period tonight, but he will give us an update, which we'll all hear. Thank you. Go ahead, Zan.
Thanks for the invitation. I've asked Paul to help me advance through a few slides just to convey that a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I can keep my comments a little more brief with what we have to share. Again, thank you for allowing us to come and talk about the project. We're in a sort of a restarting phase of the project this time, and I'll talk a little more about that in a few minutes. Some of you may have been here for past council presentations that I've given, and some of you may have not been. So to give you a little background, the Logan River Watershed Plan is a project that involves the Cache Water District as the primary sponsor, which is funded by NRCS, the National Resource Conservation Service. Other partners or sponsors that are co-sponsors in the project include Crockett Avenue Irrigation Company, Logan City, North Logan City, Hyde Park as well. And there's several other stakeholders that are involved with the project. So Paul, let's go ahead and go to the next slide and just flip through these slides for just a second. Go ahead and load them up. The primary purpose of the project is to address several needs and challenges that exist within the Logan River watershed and in Cache Valley. The first and foremost is protection of water rights. That's one of the purposes of the Cache Water District and one of the reasons why they're sponsoring this project, so that we can maintain and keep our water resources here and use them effectively within the valley. We have limited resources. I think we're all aware of that. We're dependent on the snowpack as our reservoir to take care of a lot of our irrigation and culinary water needs. Deteriorating infrastructure. Many of the canals and the irrigation systems that were built many years ago, well over a decade ago, by our founding fathers in the valley, if you will. In addition to that, there's a lot of culinary upgrades that need to be given within cities like Logan, North Logan, and Hyde Park that can benefit from this project by utilizing and using irrigation water to offset those needs. This is an overview of the Crockett Avenue Irrigation Company service area. The brighter colors indicate the service area, and the colors themselves, red, blue, and green, indicate municipal boundaries. This map may be a little bit off, but it primarily just shows you a general service area of what the project entails, which is focused on the Crockett Avenue service area.
And the green part is county?
The aerial part, yes, that would be county area. Great question. Go ahead, Paul. So there's a lot of processes that go through as we accomplish a project of this size. You can sort of see from our We Are Here flag on this that we are progressing through the project. There was a lot of initial work that was done with this project. I've been involved with engineering for quite some time in the Valley, and the first discussions and association we had with relation to stormwater or floodwater, which is part of this project, was back in 2008 when we were involved with the stormwater master plan for Logan City. We subsequently did studies in 2015 with many of the communities included in this project. And we also were involved with a study in 2016 through 2020 that involved pressure irrigation. So through that, we assessed the situation, we identified needs. We went through and found funding to move forward with the project through NRCS, through their Watershed Protection Program. It's commonly called PL 566. We went through and did some initial planning, and now we're in the environmental phase of the project and currently working on an EIS. The project originally started as an environmental assessment from NRCS. What we found as we got into the project, the scale of the project and inflationary costs that came in the last several years drove the project above what is typical program limits through the NRCS for an environmental assessment. At that point in time, we talked with the NRCS, and they determined that it would be the right thing to do is to advance it to an environmental impact statement. So it's a programmatic reason why we're moving to an EIS rather than an EA at this point in time. So we're in the environmental phase, and then once we're through this, we can proceed forward with design, construction, and then long-term operation and maintenance. So this is the beginning of where we are. I've highlighted the box where we are starting now. We started through the environmental assessment process, as I mentioned earlier, but now we're restarting with the environmental impact statement process. And we really are at the beginning of that process, where we are initiating the EIS. And we've done these 4 bullet items that you see here is where we're at. We filed a notice of public intent, published a notice of intent that an EIS would be performed earlier in March. And we're in a current 30-day comment period for people to give input about the intent of the project. And I'll show you some information in a minute that you can refer to find out more about the project and in fact submit comments if you'd like to. So we've taken care and we're working on that current dark box there. And then we'll continue to progress through those other 8 to 7 boxes over the next period of time. It's ideal that the NRCS would like to get through this process in about 2 years. So this is a summary of a flyer that was submitted out to the public. It's been mailed to people that are adjacent to what we anticipate being the project corridor. We also mailed information or emailed information about the public comment period to those that commented prior during the environmental assessment. During the environmental assessment, we had a scoping period of time where people were able to provide comment at that period as well. We received over 800 comments at that point in time. Those comments that were received at that point in time in the environmental assessment are still valid and have been used and will be used in this part of the project as well as we do this environmental work. So we're currently in that 30-day comment public period as we get ready to start that environmental impact statement. So this is just a summary of the different types of projects that are being considered underneath this environmental impact statement. The Watershed Protection Program has various areas of emphasis, one of which is recreation. And as part of this project and the application, we've outlined in communication and coordination with the Logan Parks and Trails Department is improving a canal trail from 2nd East up to 6th East along Canyon Road. Part of that would be in the area where an existing canal is, that by another portion of the project would be opened up to allow a trail to be built there. So that's a project that's been involved with the master plan. We worked with Russ Akina and his team on that project. This is an example of what a flood control project might be as well. This isn't a determined, it isn't a final alternative by any means, but it's an alternative or an idea of how we might convey stormwater or floodwaters that come through Logan City. The concept here is to take floodwater that comes during storm events that runs through the canals and create overflows so that water can be moved to the west rather than moving northerly and overtopping the canals. Canals traditionally get smaller as they go towards their end, but stormwater, as it goes towards the end, tends to increase in flow. So if we can create these fuse points where overflows can go forward and go west, that alleviates flooding, which is really an important part of the watershed protection program. The last option here that we've got involved with the project is agricultural water delivery or pressure irrigation. This is a map that we created over time from the environmental assessment. We just use it as a reference as we go into the environmental impact statement. But you can see some key components here. The dark yellow lines are sort of a backbone of the system that would be considered transmission lines. And then throughout the area that's highlighted there, we would provide individual irrigation turnouts for each user to be able to have irrigation or secondary water at those places of use. You'll see that to the right of the screen, you'll see that symbol with Highway 89 on it. That's First Dam located nearby there. You'll see that there's an indication of a potential pump station. That's on the Logan River, that's the Crawford diversion. And then also a pump station further west. One of the things that we heard in the comments that came from the initial environmental assessment was the importance of keeping water in the Logan River and improving its water quality. Logan and others participate in a conservation action plan for the Logan River, and that outlined a series of things that could be done along the Logan River to improve its quality as a fishery and as an asset to the community and the natural environment. One of those items is to keep the temperature of the water at a certain level that promotes fish health and keep water clarity in a good way for fish as well. This project will do that. The intent is to increase the water flows along the majority, if not all, of the Logan River by working together by sending water down the Logan River, and then you see the pump station to the west. That water could then be retrieved and pumped up into the water storage lagoons, which are deemed decommissioned by Logan City, where we can store about 2,500 acre-feet of water. That's advantageous because we can bring the high flow runoff water and put it into those lagoons in the spring, and then we can pump that out in the late fall when perhaps there's water shortage due to the Kimball Decree. So it allows us more consistent uses of water to be able to service the area here. And there's that pump station that comes off of those storage ponds that would feed back up into the system as well. Let's go ahead and Paul. So just to give you an example, or just to get you further information, the easiest thing to do to find information out about the project is to just search Logan River Watershed, EIS, in Google, and you'll be able to find this link to the NRCS webpage where you find a bunch of information. There's maps, there's write-ups and descriptions about the projects and the alternatives that we're looking at thus far, and just a way to be able to provide comments as well. You can find contact information there. We have a public website, and we also have a phone number that you can call and talk with somebody personally. So I think that's the end of it, yeah. So with that, I would open it up to any questions that the council or the mayor has for me. I'd be glad to answer those for you this time.
So of those 800 comments that you received, can you give us an idea of maybe some of the was there any overriding content that was similar or consistent or?
Right, yeah, what were those outcomes from the 800 comments that were there? We did categorize those and put them into buckets.
Okay.
And one of those was related to the Little Logan. One of the things that the Little Logan does is it's really a part of the system that Crockett Avenue uses to extend irrigation water to the southern part of the city. It runs through Jens Johansson Park, it runs through Merlin Olsen Park, it runs down into the Cache County Fairgrounds, Willow Park, the zoo, And it's sort of an amenity, right, that comes through there. That water is largely fed through irrigation water that's diverted from the river. We heard that that was an important concept and something that people wanted to maintain. And so as we looked at the alternatives during the EA, and as we're looking at that alternative going into the EIS, we have made provisions to allow for water to be maintained in that from the west side of Crockett Avenue down through the reach of Logan. Now that doesn't come without additional effort, because as we divert water into that natural channel, it does have a water right to be used for irrigation purposes. And so the intent would be, as that water goes to the west, there's that lower pump station. It would be collected and put back up into those storage ponds, and then that water can be redistributed back into the system. So it's things like that as we've gotten comments, I think they've really enhanced the project to be able to meet the needs of what the public has shared, and also the intent and purpose and need as we outlined as we started the presentation. It doesn't come without a cost. There's a lot of discussion still to take place about operations and maintenance and taking care of pumping. But I think we've done a nice job, in my opinion, to address items like that. Another item is that's out there is, what do we do with the canals? What does that do? Canals have been, as they have the irrigation water pulled out of them, they can become a challenge in maintenance. Hartwell Brow, your street superintendent, your road superintendent, that's a challenge for him. And so we're looking at ways to improve the flood conveyance of the water within those by perhaps lining those or putting some type of a box or pipe in those to carry flood water, as we showed that alternative, but also to keep those areas cleaner and keep them from having stuff dumped in them, and it just sort of turns into a green waste area at times. And we've heard that as a concern. And so we're looking at ways to try to mitigate some of those items as well. So those are some of the key things that we heard in our comments. There are many others. Some are very individualized, particular to an individual's property. But those seem to be the largest concerns, as we talk about trying to keep flow in the river, improving that fishery, the Little Logan, and then just the condition of the canals and what's happening there. So, great question.
Did you say that you're potentially going to increase the flow in the river itself?
Correct. So the way that the project is intended at this point, through the alternatives that we've developed, at the Crockett Avenue diversion, they have the water right to peel out all of that water essentially and put it into the canal system. Recognizing that there's value to keep water in the river and keep that fishery and that habitat pristine, the project can allow and made provisions to allow 25 second feet of water to go past that diversion and continue down the river. We've worked with Bethany Nelson. She's a professor at Utah State University. She may be here with us today, I'm not sure, but she is sort of the expert on the Logan River. We've worked with her on the studies to show and model what the 25 second feet would do at their minimum flows to improve the fishery, and everything shows that it's meeting the impact needs of the conservation action plan that was studied and put into place. So that's a win, right? That's a check mark. Now the water does go down to the lower pump station, needs to be put back into the system to keep water rights whole for those that have those, but there's provisions there to be able to make that happen and improve the system overall.
Are there individuals that take water directly out of the river right now within the service area?
Out of the river itself?
Yes.
That I know that there are several irrigation companies that take water out of the river along the way.
Okay, the irrigation companies do, but no individuals do.
I can't answer that question for you right now. I wouldn't be surprised that there are some usually lower in the reach as you get down west.
Okay.
They have individual rights that they'll pull out to take care of agricultural purposes. But typically, the irrigation companies are the primary diversions in the upper reaches of the Logan River through Logan City.
And do you know how many of those there are?
Irrigation companies that divert
Within
out?
the Crockett umbrella?
Within the Crockett umbrella, there are 10 irrigation companies underneath Crockett's purview. So the Crockett Avenue Irrigation Company diverts water out of the river, and then it splits and goes into 10 different companies. I felt to recognize Gordon Colson with us today. Gordon's the president of the irrigation company, and he's been kind enough to come and show us support and just be present if there's a question you might have.
So Zan, my understanding was that at the end of the environmental assessment, there were alternatives, which you discussed sort of some. Those alternatives, do they carry forward into the environmental impact statement, or do they have the potential to change through the environmental impact statement process?
Great question. As we went through the environmental assessment, we probably came up with 20 different alternatives of how to approach the project. We put those in a matrix and started to rank them on key criteria that came out of the comments from the public, the purpose and need as well. From that, we started to narrow that down during the environmental assessment process. So all of that work that was done with the matrix and those different alternatives is still applicable within the EIS and just helps us to be a little bit further down the tracks, so to speak. But I don't want to preclude that any comments that we receive now, in addition to those that were there before, aren't going to be included and potentially address or cause some changes within the alternatives that are out there.
And subsequently, between environmental assessment and environmental impact statement, what are the additional pieces that have to be accomplished prior to any funding for any given alternative?
Great question. What is the difference between environmental assessment and environmental impact statement? With environmental assessment, you can take one preferred alternative and move that forward. When you go to an environmental impact statement, we actually look at multiple alternatives in detail. So in environmental assessment, we do like an economic analysis on that specific alternative that's rising to the top. We do different biological studies with regard to flora and fauna. We deal with wetlands specific to that. When we go to an environmental impact statement, we look at other prominent alternatives and go into that detail with them as well. Currently, there's 3 alternatives that exist, but again, those can tweak and change. One is the no action alternative, where we just sort of hold steady and do some patchwork or try to keep the system going forward. One is looking at diverting water from first dam to pressurize the system. Another is to pressurize and maybe pump out of the Crockett diversion. Those are just alternatives that we're looking at and running them through that process to see what.
So is there a possibility that others would rise to the top at this point, or are those probably the 3 that will move forward for additional study?
Because of the process, I can't say that, those 3 are going to go forward. It's probable that they will, but we don't know all of the comments that are in yet. But they seem to be the ones that have the
satisfy the most concerns at this time.
right.
If we can do something better, we want to do something better, because we want to. This canal system's been in the city for 100 and some odd years.
Yep.
We don't want to look that far forward and make it so that we can look now, or our descendants can look now and say, yeah, they were as smart as the one that really started it. We want to be able to make everything better here. So
Okay.
things are, I will say that the ink does not seem to dry. And it probably won't until we get probably another year, till we get all the information gathered and Sam can.
And even at that, it's depends on funding
Right.
at the end anyway.
Yep.
It all depends. Ultimately, no matter what we choose except do nothing, we have to find money to fund it.
We have to find money to do nothing too.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, there is nothing that doesn't cost anything. Everything will be a benefit, no matter what we do. But it just depends on how much help we can get from what different agencies are available. And I hope I don't speak out of turn. But we want to minimize the impact of us on the local level. but we still want to do the best, get the best benefit that will come from this. So,
I would probably add, just that I didn't share in the presentation, we're in a comment period right now while we're issuing the notice of intent. That can be, the information that we gather now can be used to help develop the alternatives and refine those like we've been talking about. Once we go through and get that information and we develop the alternatives and look at a preferred alternative, there'll be a draft environmental impact statement that will be created. And at that point in time, it will be published. And then there'll be another 30-day comment period. So that's going to be probably happening early next year, would be the anticipated schedule there. So just so people recognize that once even the alternatives are developed and the information that backs that alternative up is put there, there is an opportunity for further comment so that the public and you as council members are aware of that also.
Will that be a online only or a public process?
There'll be a public process that goes through, and there's actually public meetings
Okay.
that people can come in. There'll likely be an open house of some type. As we work through these projects in other areas of the state, we've had public meetings where we've expressed or shared information during that public comment period. So we can gather input and get some feedback as well.
Thank you.
Great.
Questions? My questions were all.
Thank you, Sam, we appreciate it.
Paul just suggested one item to add. The current 30-day period ends on the 10th of April. So if you have comments to add in, please send those in. We'll get those compiled and added into the mix. Again, if you've created comments before, those are carrying forward, so they'll be recognized in that.
Do you have a quick and easy way people can find that location to make comment?
Yep, just go to Logan River Watershed, EIS, just Google that, and just click on the first link that comes up, and then as you read through that, you'll find some information on where to click to a website, or to make a phone call, and there's an email that you can get to as well.
So phone call comments are accepted? Okay, and how are they recorded?
They are taken notes by our public involvement specialist. So written comments would be better to memorialize in that regard. So, and he may propose that you put your comments in writing and send those in as well.
Okay,
So, great question.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Sam,
Sam.
thank you for attending and for that update. And with that, that concludes my portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, we'll now move on to council business. Jeannie Simmons, do you have a planning commission update for us?
Oh, I do. Hold on. My computer is quiet. Yes, there was, do we want to wait a minute and let everybody who wants to leave?
Or they might
You're
want
welcome to
here.
stay, you're welcome to,
You're welcome to stay, but we
or
can,
you're welcome
we can
to
give a
slip
minute
out
if
if
anybody wants to leave.
if you're.
Huge agenda of excitement tonight. I'm not complaining.
So Jeannie invites people to leave. You don't want them to hear what you have to say?
Thank you for coming.
You don't need to apologize.
I know they're all
Teresa.
going to get up.
It's not your fault the agenda has one thing on it. I think it is Teresa's fault. I'm going to buy her more chocolates to keep this going.
No, not tonight, yeah.
Is there a time that people can come to us with questions or concerns about
It's
that?
not really our project.
Okay, Planning Commission last Thursday. Russ was nice enough to send me the information. I was not there. There was a duplex that was approved at 328 South 100 West in the MR12 zone. There was a 5-unit student housing townhome project at 456 North 600 East in the campus residential zone with a 15% parking reduction. And the Mountain America Credit Union design review for a 4,000 square foot building at 991 West 10th North next to Costco was approved. And there are some rezones that we will be discussing here.
Okay. And would you like to move into your board and committee reports?
Sure. So in the past month, I had a meeting with the Adams neighborhood to set up the agenda for the Adams neighborhood meeting on the 16th, 17th, I'm not sure. Sorry. Went to Planning Commission, also attended the Woodruff neighborhood meeting. I spent an entire day doing captain interviews at the fire station and had an interesting meeting with Greenbox Solar, who has they have some ideas about how we can expand solar in the community and how it can be beneficial to us, because one of the challenges is when the sun shines, sometimes the power's cheap, and when the sun doesn't shine is when we really need it. So we know that that'll be something that has to have some battery capability along with it. And last week, I spent 2 days at the Spring Water Conference. And so they do one part which is affiliated with the water, well, both of it was affiliated with the water district, but half of it was down at the fairgrounds. That's really called our Spring Water Conference, and then we partnered with the university because they do a spring runoff concert. So it was a really wonderful opportunity to hear from a lot of experts and watch the governor sign the water bills, even though he said he signed them already. He just did it for show.
Symbolically, all for show.
Yep.
Symbolic.
And Adams is April 17th.
17. I knew it was Wednesday, and I was trying to go, what day is Wednesday?
Are you going to attend that one?
Adams? Of course. Yeah.
For you.
Yep. Everybody's welcome.
All welcome.
I'll be in St. George with Amy. Is anyone else going?
April 17th.
Just the two of us? Party in St.
So-
George?
Party.
I don't
To
think
the League of
so.
Cities and Towns.
If you've never been at the Utility Institute of Town, is
You've
not
never
a
hung out
party.
with me before.
It's going to be a party,
Hey.
party, not a party. So.
Yes, at the League of Cities and Towns.
Mark, it's your turn.
My turn. Let's see, met with the golf course board and we went over budgets and some improvements, and there's some really great things happening at the golf course. So it's exciting to see the enthusiasm that our citizens and other members of the community have for the golf course, and they seem to be doing really well, so that's good. Solid Waste Advisory Committee is meeting on the 22nd of April for the first time, so that's upcoming.
Thank you for taking that on.
I know, it's kind of exciting. And the Wilson Neighborhood Plan is moving forward as well too. We met a week and a half ago, so nothing too big.
All right. Thanks, Mark. We'll now move on to the non-action item section of our agenda.
We have, for the
We
first
have
time, no action
No action
items.
I
items,
think that is.
none.
I think that's like, I've never had that happen.
I think Rich is not doing his job.
In all the years
There's
I've been
always
doing this.
something from Rich.
We're trying, we're holding it all up.
Hold it up.
Great. So we will move on to our workshop item, which is the consideration of a proposed resolution for meeting room fees from Karen for our fabulous new library space. Thanks, Karen, for being here.
Council, thank you for having me tonight. We just wanted to present our meeting room fees that we have spent several months discussing which fees would be most equitable to our patrons, and keeping in mind our mission statement, which is the Logan Library sparks creation, exploration, and collaboration in our community. So we really wanted to talk about those community members that could really benefit from using free or cheaper community room space. So this is how we divided it out, especially if you are, so at first, if you're a library event or a Logan City sponsored event, then of course it's free. Community groups and nonprofits that are open to the public is free. We have the cash writers come in every other week, and they are free. Educational activities sponsored by educational institutions, homeschool groups, and other educational organizations. And I have to tell you, it's been really exciting to see all of our homeschoolers come back in, and they're using all their meeting rooms for study, for little classes, and it's been really good. And then political debates and candidate forums. We held one in the old library when Mayor Daines was running for office, and it was packed. I mean, it was so full, and again, we would be happy to do that again. Class 2 is, category 2 is where we put community groups and nonprofits that are closed to the public. So if they're holding a special event that only certain people are invited to, or they can only do certain things, then we have to charge. Educational classes that charge a fee to attend and have limited attendance, and then business or educational conferences, workshops, or meetings. We have actually had USU come down and do workshops and so forth with us. So we wanted to provide a space for them. And then the category 3 is anybody using sales, anything for a sale, anything that they're charging for, that they're making money on the community room, then we're putting that towards that, or we're charging for that. We decided to put food is allowed in community room A and B, and that's the big community room, and groups wishing to serve food or beverages in the community room must pay a $75 cleaning fee, and absolutely no food with red food done.
It would have to be, do you have a restriction on it being food that people didn't make at their house? Because
we do not.
What I don't want us to do is become like a potluck place. And I think that if they're going to be in a public space, they have to have had food service, they have to have a food service permit
The
kind of
food
thing.
handler's permit.
Because I really worry that we don't need to let that happen.
Yeah,
Sorry.
usually what we've had is like a box lunch
Right.
type thing.
Oh, I still
So
totally understand
yeah.
that.
So, but we can add that caveat in
Yeah,
there.
I think that it would be appropriate for us just to be really clear.
That would probably go actually in our meeting room policy, which I
Okay.
also sent to you, and since that time, we're going to be taking it back to the library board and stuff, so we can, we've added some more things, because as we're going through this process, we're learning a lot, and we've studied other places to see what they charge and everything, and I borrowed, in library world we call it borrowing, not stealing, when we look at other people's policies and we borrow things from them and use that, so we will continue to do that, and Jeannie, I will add that caveat.
I would appreciate it, thank you.
So it does, if you look at the policy, Jeannie, it does say food and beverage outside of snacks and drinks with the secure lid are allowed. Like full meals are not, so does that full meals
Well,
also
full
apply?
meals-
Does that apply also to the community room, or just for in the library space
Just in the
itself?
library space itself, we're discouraging patrons from bringing in their In-N-Out burgers, their breakfast cereals and that kind of things. We want them to just be able to, of course, have a small snack, or we're trying to encourage them, just water bottles, please, and do not bring drinks in, but it's, as you know, with people and their coffee and their other drinks, it's kind of it's a losing battle in something. So we're trying to make that accommodation as best we can and make it so we're not too intolerable for staff and patrons alike. So it's a fine balance right there that we're trying to do. But we want to keep our new library looking really nice. And food is not a good thing to have in a place that we want to keep looking nice.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on the requiring commercial food, though, because I think some of our smaller community groups, especially ethnic community groups, many times they want to share the food of their community. And I would worry that that would prohibit them from being able to do that if we required all of the food to be commercially prepared. So I'm a little hesitant, Jeannie, to think that that should be.
I don't care about the commercially prepared, but I think they should have food handler permits if they're feeding it to other people.
And how would we enforce that?
They would have to
Show their permit.
show that they have the permit.
Who would have to do that?
Would the library staff have to
When
check
they made the
that they have-
reservation, I would assume.
I mean, there's a form that every group fills out when they want to reserve a room, so.
We could add that on the form, do you have a food handler's permit? And they would have to say yes or no. But again, if it's a group, and especially if it's a private group and they're paying $100 to $300 or whatever to use the room, and then, so.
I'm just thinking, like the homeschool groups that come in are, I'm assuming that at times they might be providing food. I don't want it to be burdensome for people, but I appreciate the safety concerns. So I'm just not sure what the balance is on that.
Perhaps if it's a meal or something, we would say a food handler's permit. I don't know. I could do some research.
If you wouldn't mind.
Somebody else probably has.
I haven't seen it in other policies, but I can do some research.
Right, exactly.
Like if somebody cooks tamales and wants to bring it to the
know.
meeting.
To like
Yummy.
city council.
To city council.
There's no food or drink allowed in here.
So in the agreement that we have for utilizing the space, Craig, have we worked out kind of like a limited liability, like they would assume all responsibility if they're providing any food or beverages?
I personally haven't seen an agreement yet. Mo may have seen one. He helped him on the public meeting room policy. I don't know if we've got an agreement. Do you know, Karen?
We don't have an agreement. I mean, you mean the form?
Well-
Mo worked on the policy with
Yeah,
us.
the agreement essentially transfers risk from Logan City to the entity, whoever is using the library.
We don't have anything like that. Do we need something like that?
That's something we can work on.
Yeah, 'cause I'm
Okay.
thinking that to me takes the risk away from the library. If somebody does bring in something that ends up not being, even if it's commercially prepared, some with the food handlers,
Yeah.
if they haven't stored it properly, that's still an issue, so.
Problematic, yeah.
Okay, that's definitely, like I said, we're learning every day,
Yeah.
so. Good to know. Any other questions or concerns?
So when somebody wants to use the space, is it basically first come, first served? Are you thinking of opening the calendar at certain intervals? Like, is it 90 days in advance? Is it 60?
It's actually open right now, and it is, people can do 90 days in advance. That's what we set up.
Okay.
So, and we have events going on right now. So
Fair amount.
tomorrow, first day, or today was the first day of story time. So.
Awesome.
So if I want to do something in a year, I have to wait till 90 days before I make a
Yeah.
reservation. Okay.
Makes sense.
And they just call in to reserve.
You can call in, or there's a QR code on our, I want to say it's on our website, but there's also a form going to be on our website. I know they were still working on it last I heard. So, but we have a QR code at all the service desks, and people have been able to access that.
And I know you have a wide variety of events. I would assume if one entity started like monopolizing the time that you would come up. Do you have a policy that would address the number of uses per 90
do.
days?
It's
or-
6 times in a 90-day period.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
I
says
missed that.
right there, so we
Perfect.
didn't have
All of that?
that concern.
Still a lot of time, I guess.
Yeah.
2 a month, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Karen? Okay, Karen?
And I also sent you our latest, our mission statement, so if you would have that in case you needed it to convey anything.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I didn't get the tweet to me again today.
Oh, no.
So, I'm sorry, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice work on the policy, Karen.
Okay. Any other considerations from the council? Okay, I'll just add, Hillcrest is holding their neighborhood community council meeting on April 24th at 5:30 at Hillcrest Elementary. So, and people are welcome to come to that one as well. Anything else?
I know I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but we are doing that traffic master plan, pedestrian plan. We're starting next Monday, the first discussion of that, so if anyone else wants to attend. Paul was able to set up a meeting for that. Monday the 8th. What time is it at, Paul? Do you know? 1:30. 1:30 in the engineering conference room. So,
Okay.
if anyone else is interested, shoot me or Paul and we'll get you.
Okay. All right. You good?
Other than that,
Did you say 1:30?
1:30 on the 8th. Yep.
All right. We are adjourned.
Almost as short as last time.
I know, we broke our record.